just cleaned out my desk.
Okay, everyone, we're going to start the February 14th Valentine's Day edition of the Traffic Safety Bike and Ped Committee meeting. I call it to order. The first item on the agenda will be the approval of the January minutes. Has everyone had a chance to read them? And
I move approval of the minutes.
okay, we have one approval.
Second.
And we have a second. All in favor of approving the minutes from January 2019, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, that passes. Next, we have the appearance of interested citizens, and tonight we have our great staff member Nate Brown here to talk.
So, yeah, that's kind of. I was just going to get up and go up to the board, so I'm not sure how you want to do with that one. Okay, because I'm so good at that. So I wanted to, this Tuesday night, Kathy was there and others of you were there. We had our open house on our Keizer revitalization project, and there's a segment of that that deals with transportation. And so the suggestion was made that it'd be awfully nice if this group were apprised of what was going on in that project. So what I have done is I have brought these boards, which is kind of the summary of what's in the report dealing with some of the transportation issues. As you know, one of the key elements in Keizer is the substandard nature of River Road and the fact that it is so constrained. When they widened River Road, they chopped off the frontage of, particularly I guess on the east side of River Road, they chopped off the frontage of several of the businesses up and down the corridor. And today we live with substandard parking. Copycats is my best example of how awful it really is. They have angled parking that really doesn't meet any standard whatsoever. They're maneuvering, and it's just terrible for them to try to maintain a business. But also one of the big things is there is no bike lane and no room for an adequate bike lane. So part of the grant is we actually did an analysis of the transportation facilities. We asked them to identify what solutions might be available for the city to consider, and as well as how are we going to address the biking facilities. So on the first panel that you see there are basically three different configurations that the city could consider of the travel lanes for River Road. The top diagram is existing today and the dimensions today. The second one is if we actually created bike lanes on River Road. They are minimal bike lanes. They would be 4 feet. The travel lanes would be reduced in width. Oh, sorry. No, the second one is getting rid of the middle turn lane. And that means, yeah, that was everybody's response. Not sure exactly how that works because obviously turning movements become very difficult. You would have to basically eliminating left turns into that commercial corridor. And what do you do when you get to the signalized intersections? How do you deal with turning movements there? Basically that ends up constraining River Road significantly in the throughput of the number of trips. River Road handles about 32,000 trips a day, so it's very significant. So then the second one then under that, the multi-use path, one of the things that could happen is there's enough, and all three of those basically are within the existing right-of-way. None of this depends upon acquiring additional right-of-way, unless there's some exception that I don't know about. So the second one is basically we have enough room to basically narrow the travel lanes of the vehicles and create a multi-use path on one side, on the east side is what that's suggesting. That would be a shared path for pedestrians and bicycles. It would be basically two-way bicycle traffic as well as pedestrians. Probably it would be striped and there'd be some demarcation on the sidewalk. But even then, I can't remember Wayne, can you read the dimension on that path? I think it's 10 feet.
12.
Sorry,
This one?
12?
12 feet.
Is it 12? Okay.
Yeah, 12. Multi-use path, 12.
Okay. And then the bottom one would be, well, if we narrowed the travel lanes of the cars, we could squeeze in a substandard bike lane. That bike lane would be 4 feet, and it would be no protection. The top one shows what the configuration of a viable bike lane would be is, and again, Wayne, if you can read that.
5-foot bike lane with a 2-foot buffer.
5-foot bike lane with a 2-foot buffer. So that's basically the recommended, that's the recommended bike lane. So a total of 7 feet for each. Anyway, so the bottom one is just a 4-foot bike lane, and pretty much you're riding in traffic. So I don't know about you, but I am not that fearless of a bike rider.
All those designs look like they're retaining a planting strip, but that doesn't tell the dimension of it. The planting strip behind the sidewalk instead of in front of it.
Yeah, so basically that planting strip is private, whatever may be there on the private side. So the right-of-way is the dimensioned that you see.
Just the curb to curb?
The sidewalk, back of sidewalk to back of sidewalk.
Yeah, oh, okay.
And so that is just basically saying the development code requires new development to have a planting strip. We have, our new standard is to separate the sidewalk. And so in many places, in our new construction, for example, we require the sidewalk to be separated. Black Rock Coffee, for example, they have separated sidewalks. That is just part of the design standards of our current standard. Some of our older developments we did with urban renewal funds. We did that as part of grants. And some of those separated are put in, we didn't require them to dedicate the property, they're put in easements. So anyway, so those are the three configurations that basically they came up with. They looked also, our transportation engineers looked to see what kinds of parallel routes might be created. And so that middle board shows basically what kind of parallel route may be utilizing Cherry. Cherry already is improved with bike lanes, but also then on the west side looking, there's a parallel route. The problem is it is not immediately adjacent to River Road. And so if you are a long haul commuter, Michael, if I could see Michael, for example, taking either of those routes. But if you're just simply somebody who wants to take a bike and go from a business to another business or going from your home to a business, it really is very tough because it's so far separated from River Road. The good news is it's very easy to implement. It's just a matter of signs and paint. The bad news is there's not a great close parallel route. And then also designating connectors to that, east-west connectors from those parallel routes to the main corridors. And they would, again, it would have to be a whole program of marking and signing and educating drivers so that they have to share the road where appropriate. And then the last board is basically an inventory of the amount, the status of the improvements that we have in this corridor area. And as you can see, it ranges from fairly adequate all the way down to no sidewalks and a gravel shoulder. So obviously any consideration of revitalization in this study area would have to pay attention to the level of improvements that we have and to address the deficiencies that are there. So in a nutshell, without reading the report, that is pretty much it. We asked people to put, it was mostly to get people engaged in the boards. So we asked them to put dots. Red dots was, I hate it. Green dots was, I like it. And yellow dots is, okay, somewhere in the middle. Or as I told some people, well, look at it this way. The red dots is what you hate the most, and the green dot is what you hate the least.
Among those. Yeah.
And one other thing, so a couple of interesting things came up on our stakeholders. Somebody actually suggested, you know, it may not be a one size for the whole corridor. There may be sections where for example, getting rid of that turn lane may be appropriate. On the south end, there may be sections where we could get rid of that center turn lane. Nobody tell the fire district. Oh, shoot, it's on TV. Anyway, so somebody suggested that maybe there might be a way to kind of tailor that cross-section depending on what the improvement and just the circumstances of different sections would be. I thought that was interesting. Somebody else also suggested, well, maybe we don't have one multi-use path, two-way bike lanes on one side of River Road. Maybe we split the difference and put one-way bike lanes shared with pedestrian on one side and the opposite direction on the other side. Of course, pedestrians would go both ways, but
Safer, yeah.
bicycles. Part of the concerns with the multi-use path is you've got all the crossing traffic, all of those driveways, as well as the fact that pedestrians aren't great at paying attention, and the more you share with these things, yeah, exactly, on their devices, whatever. So, in a nutshell, that's basically the transportation section of what this project was. And I've probably taken more time than you were counting on.
When are they looking at making some decisions on these items?
Well, basically for now, these options will be in the report with hopefully some explanation of the community feedback that we're getting on each of those different sections. So I don't think the report, at least I haven't heard that our objective is to settle on a specific recommendation, although I could well see that we could indeed, we could identify how that might play out in the community. I mean, perhaps we could develop a recommendation, and it depends on folks like you weighing in on it. So.
And this is the entire River Road corridor from where to where?
It's basically from Wheatland all the way down to southern end.
David, you had a question? David, did you have a question?
Yeah, is there any effort to say eliminate some of the driveways on the River Road? Or to
Consolidate.
consolidate them, or make them go in from the back or something? And I don't even know how you would do it, but is there any thought to that?
Yeah, okay. Well, currently it's not in the program to eliminate driveways, because as you can imagine, if you're a business, somebody comes to you and say, hey, we're going to eliminate your driveway. At this point, I go back to copycats. Copycats is weird. So they basically have that narrow strip in front of their building, and it's one way in, and then there's angled parking and one way out. But right on the in and right on the out, there's a little fence and another driveway. So I could envision that there would be some opportunity to make a little bit more sense of that and combine those two. And there may be some of those opportunities up and down the corridor. So if there was anything, any opportunity, I think that would be where the low-hanging fruit would be. The other thing is to actually implement regulatory requirements on redevelopment of parcels, and actually make it an absolute requirement that thou shalt share a driveway. That it's very difficult, but the opportunity is there.
I thought that there was a requirement if the property turned over to reduce the accesses. I mean, I worked with access control for ODOT, and
Sure.
it is a huge issue. You have to buy access control if you're trying to close it. So it's a very sensitive issue, but it also makes a whole lot of sense, traffic and safety-wise, to reduce the number of ins
It
and outs
is,
that you have.
and we do have language there now. It is an identified objective. The problem is, it's not, for example, when we did Starbucks, we took that opportunity and we made them combine. And as redevelopment does occur, we look for those opportunities. There's not a lot of teeth, though, in the development code as
More
far
like a
as,
suggestion, huh?
it's more, you should when you can, kind of thing.
So when, in one of the meetings, we talked about the access behind buildings, and I think you'd said something about currently there's nothing prohibiting creating openings between properties.
Right.
So
If you have two willing property owners, absolutely, hallelujah.
yeah, so
You know.
we don't have anything currently that is a regulatory.
Yeah, for example, at Taco Bell, originally that was intended that would be connected and that there would be no individual driveway onto River Road. But as Kathy points out, it doesn't take very much before people get pretty excited and pretty concerned. So it takes a very strong regulatory will to make it happen.
But, excuse me, but Mike, were you talking about connections from property to property, just so somebody could walk from one or bike from one to the next without having to go out onto the street?
So ideally, we would have it for all users, but to start off with, certainly a walking, biking connection, because there are some streets that, dead end off of River Road, and you can't get to a business further down River Road without being on River Road. So to be able to go behind would be nice.
Okay. I think the bottom line of what I would tell you is it would take a pretty concerted regulatory reform to put some real requirements in the code. All it takes is for one person to say, no, you can't, because I'll lose a parking, and I don't have enough parking, and so I can't do it.
Right.
And then we're left with, okay, well, we asked the question.
But that's not in the packet that would be eventually presented to
No,
council?
not specifically to that level, no.
Is-
But we're not done.
Yeah.
So,
Is there flexibility in the code for example, if someone wanted to redevelop a whole block, like that block where Copycats is, I can see that, taking that whole block down and putting a two-story building there. Do you have the flexibility then to say, okay, if you're doing that, you just get one access in and one access out for the whole block, and your parking's going to be down back behind?
yes, we would have that opportunity because we control that access. You've got to get an access permit. And if they were developing to that level, that would all be part of the transportation analysis that takes place on it.
Okay.
So that would be an opportunity. The real challenge, though, is we don't see that kind of large scale.
Yeah.
There's a lot of improvement on that ground, and another part of this project is we're doing an economic opportunity analysis on it. So we've had the economist actually look at property values, look at improvement costs, look at market pressures, and the bottom line is River Road turns a solid. It's not a blighted area in an economic definition. those properties are rentable and they make a return on their investment. And so we don't see a lot of pressure to redevelop.
Any
What,
other?
So is it on? Oh, sorry. Is there a deadline by which our committee members or anybody of the public should be submitting additional comments about this?
Not a specific deadline, so if you want to make comments, by all means, jump in. So we're also, the project is in a little bit of a quandary at this point because our project lead got a job with ODOT. And so we're not sure who the lead is going to be just yet. So our calendar is a little bit in disarray. But by all means, if you guys want to deliberate on it and make comments and urge recommendations or whatever, the next couple of months, absolutely.
Now, do people make comments? Is there a website that people would put comments to, or?
You ask hard questions. It's all on the web, but do we have a comment form? I don't believe we do. You can just simply submit.
There was one last week, because I made some comments last week.
That's true, you did. I saw those.
So, you know, if you keep
Where did you
that
find that?
web.
On
On the
Keiser's
website, there's a, you know, under the Keizer thing, there's a Keizer revitalization
Oh, okay.
Comment sheet?
program and a place to make comments.
Oh,
It's a detail, you don't need to know all
You're
the details.
the first one to find it.
Yeah.
Maybe so.
yes, so there is a comment sheet.
Okay, good. All right. And people could do they have to put their name and all that? Okay, good.
But you can make up a name if you want to say something.
True.
All right. Let's not get carried away.
I claim Nate Brown. Okay, do we have any other questions for Nate?
So I would ask you as a committee, if you want to make comments on this, if you want to deliberate on it or something and make comments at your next meeting, I would certainly welcome that. As I mentioned earlier, a big component of the project is public outreach. So we welcome the participation, and there is a comment form online.
So are you looking for a committee comment or just,
I would think a committee comment would be very appropriate.
okay. We can-
Maybe we should either send, or can we have an offline conversation where we can raise comments and share them with each other between the meetings? And then maybe we can consult, organize it or not?
No,
That's considered a meeting?
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So if-
you could organize your thoughts, or send them to Nate, individually, or send them to me individually, not talk to each other.
Well-
And I can compile them all and make them part of the packet if you want. But
Okay.
I think the best way to do it, to avoid any kind of trouble, would be just to write them, keep them on your own computer and bring them to the meeting for discussion. And we can have it on the agenda.
I
Or
would think-
before, I think that would be good, like if we could send them and then you could put them in the packet so everybody could see each other's comments
Yes,
when you put the
yes.
packet?
I think
Would that be
might
okay?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
In fact, that'd be how it's supposed to work.
Okay.
Is, make your comments, we'll assemble them into the packet, then you can
we can
consider
talk
all
about
of those as you meet and deliberate in a public meeting.
Well, so the next meeting's March 17th, so I would recommend, I'm saying March 14th.
14th.
So I would recommend you get your comments in 10 days. Would that be?
A week is good enough. I usually do the packet 1 week before the meeting.
Okay.
So if you would have them to me by the 7th.
Okay.
Particularly, we're not going to distill them, we're not going to analyze them. They're just your comments, and then you would deliberate on them and try to come to a committee recommendation, or certainly
Yeah. Okay.
participation.
Okay.
Sounds
Perfect.
good. All right, well, thank you, Nate.
Thank you.
Sorry to keep you on another night.
I am actually going over next door to the West Keizer Neighborhood Association.
Oh, okay. Well, two birds with one stone, right?
It was perfect.
Okay. All right.
Are you taking those two?
I will. You can't have those.
Well, would we like to pause to let Nate take these now?
Are these on the website somewhere?
Yes.
Or do we need to take a picture of them, or,
No, they're on the website,
okay?
Okay.
I think.
Well, the documents you sent out too, packets, should have it, so.
Yeah, we can send you anything you want electronically. It's on the web. You should be able to find it. If you can't find it, let us know.
Okay. All right, do you need a hand with that? or-
No, I've got it.
Okay. Well,
Looks like we have.
yeah, we may have an additional attendee to have comments? No, okay. All right, well, then we can move on to the Adams Court stop sign and not a through street sign. So that is what we had guests at our last meeting come to talk about, the issue of how it's very difficult to come out of Adams Street or Court off of it's off of Thorman, and being the not very good line of visibility on Thorman. So they were requesting a stop sign there, and also on Adams Court, putting not a through street sign. Did we ever get costs? I think we did talk about the costs of those, just general.
So Bill Lawyer met with Joe and Kathy and some other people on Adam Court 2 weeks ago and discussed what was going on there. And the decision to put a four-way stop there, that is not going to happen. But what we did talk about was putting a dead-end sign. And then also we have 2 solar speed displays on Rickman, and we're going to move those, which we did this afternoon. And they are, I will say, if you're on Thorman headed southbound, there's one right there just before Adam Court. And then if you're on Mambrin headed northbound, there's one right at Eve Court. And so there's the tall solar speed displays that have the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, and then it clocks the limit of the cars going by, and it'll flash at you, I think, at 27 miles an hour or something. So those were both installed today, and then including the dead-end sign on Adam Court. So when cars are on Brooks facing north, they'll see that. So in hopes that they don't turn down Adam Court. So
We talked a bit about having some type of crosswalk marker. I think it came up in the conversation because they had talking about the students who have to cross over. Is that something that was?
no, not without, you need a crossing guard, and it's not a four-way stop because they're not
No, it's
installing the
not.
stop sign. So, and no, I'll say that's not part of what we discussed, or that will not be happening.
It's a legal crossing, but it seems like driver compliance is a lot higher if you actually have a striped crossing in areas where you got, vulnerable pedestrians like that.
Or a beg button.
What's that?
Or a beg button.
Yeah, but if we put the beg button, then we'd have to put
Light.
a full light that flashes and all that. David?
I have it's not this one, it's several we've had over the years. I went down there and waited almost 5 minutes to find a car go by on Thorman. There's no traffic on that road during the day. I suspect the same thing that happened up in our neighborhood, if it's happening in front of your house, do you think there's, regardless of what it is, too much traffic and everybody's going too fast? I kept driving and couldn't figure out why anybody was having a problem seeing anybody coming out on that street. It looked like a non-issue except for somebody driving too fast, which is illegal, and we shouldn't have to, I don't think we can do things to stop people from driving 30 in a 25 or 40 in a 25. That's what the problem is. It's not the problem, if you're driving 25, you have tons of visibility and space to stop. If a kid ran out in front of you, there's nothing blocking your view.
Right.
So we can't stop the weather, we can't stop people at night, we can't stop people from speeding. And so when people bring these issues in and want something, if we did that, we'd have stop signs all over the place.
Right.
And I don't think, unless they're entering like a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit, and you got one a block away, a stop sign. And it is a major, what is it, an arterial, Mike?
It's a feeder.
Feeder street, a feeder. It's the main way to get north and south down through there.
So when you were
Well,
out,
I guess I'm just saying is that, geez, I hate to say no to anybody, but I couldn't come up with a real problem with that one and some others we've dealt with that. I don't know how to deal with the people who
The
make
problem
them
was
feel
coming
bad.
out of Adams Court, though, not being able to see the cars coming around the corner from Mandarin,
Yes, you can.
but me,
I mean, if somebody's coming around Mandram at 35 miles an hour, you are in trouble if you're pulling out. But they're only supposed to be doing 25, which means you really have lots of time.
well, that's
You
why,
got 2 or 3 seconds, which is.
yeah, well, we hope the speed signs will help.
Right.
Keep it.
But that would that's where the speed signs make sense, but
do you know
That's just
what
my-
time of day was it that you were checking this out? Do you remember?
like about 4 o'clock, 3:30.
So I'm curious how it would be in the morning during this, kids going to school, people going to work, and then again coming back home. I go through there on my bike, and I would say coming from Thorman to where it's curving around to becoming Manbren, you have a better line of sight from Adams than you do the other way. It is a sharper turn, and usually there's a few more cars parked on Manbren than would be the other side of Adams Court.
Didn't we have a problem there not too long ago with, that people were complaining about people
Yeah.
parking on both sides of the road?
Yeah.
And made the road too narrow, and actually the road's plenty wide enough for.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a couple of months ago, yeah. All right, well, thank you for that. That's
You're
good to know.
I have a question for
Yeah.
Mike. The solar speed signs, are those permanent?
No, they look permanent, but no. The police department got them a while back, and the first place we put them was on Rickman because we had some problems there. And they're made to be moved around town, so as we see other problem areas and whatnot, we'll move them. So we just kind of, I don't know how long they'll be at Thorman and Manbren, but they'll be there for a while, I will say that.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on that? All right, moving on. Debbie was kind enough to put in the project assignments that we brought up at the last meeting. If possible, I'd like to write in who wants to be the lead person for each one, and also, if we could, do some type of ranking, so we could prioritize them. So, if anyone wants to,
I could tell you the ones I could
Yeah, I can tell you that one's-
volunteer for.
okay,
Safe Routes to School Action Plan. You could add me there.
Wait, now, what are you doing? Safe routes to school
Number
Action
5.
plan.
plan? Okay, that's Wayne,
Yes.
okay.
There's a project mentioned here called bike parking facilities. Does that mean at schools? Is that what we're referring to on that one?
I think that was for, businesses.
Oh, okay.
which one was that one?
Bike parking facilities, like almost halfway down.
Well, no, I was thinking of schools, of doing that for schools, but. Okay, and then Safe Routes to Parks grant, I can work on that.
Okay.
I would take the first one, Parkway path signage, and I'll have a report update during my time for that one. And then, same thing, I guess, with what Wayne was saying, I think the I was thinking that bike parking facilities was the bike parking assessment tool, and I also have a report or update. That's a link that anyway, I can provide information about that, and
43-page link.
that's why I printed out part of it. You guys can look and add it in a minute. I can take that jointly with Wayne if that's what we're talking about at the bike,
The bike
Parking facilities.
Assessment tool is what it should have been.
let's
Yeah.
call it that, yeah.
Okay, and Wayne, you're gonna work on that too?
Yes, and that's, can it be used for schools or can it be used for business?
It's designed for schools, but
designed
we
for
could
schools.
probably see if we can adapt it for businesses after
Sure.
we
Yes.
do it at the schools. I guess another one that my name has been on for a while is where's the, the trash receptacle one, yeah, so. There it is.
Oh, there we go. public
Hirsch
knowledge.
may be with me on that one, but
I would think Hirsch would want to be for the bike skills fairs, since he, not to volunteer him, but I think that's his,
And I was working with him on that.
okay. Kathy, do you have,
I can follow up on an additional bike repair station if we could certainly find someplace to put one. And the citywide missing link project, is that kind of the same as neighborhood connectivity? Yeah, I might work on that. It's like sidewalks and being able to
going
get,
around and seeing where we got small opportunities. and
yeah,
stuff.
I can work on that. And then there's something else that's kind of tied into the NACTO discussion that I'd like to talk about in a little bit too.
when it comes to that citywide missing link, I think it might be good for us to break out in teams and just do assessments in different parts. But you can be the lead.
Okay.
Oh, about in the middle there, I lost it now.
Public
The
out.
sweeping schedule, where was it? I just read.
Oh, that's done.
I was gonna say, that was in the newspaper and
Yeah.
it got posted online. and-
Yeah.
I asked him to tell me when, because after you did that, after you talked about it, I went to Public Works and got that and updated it on the website. I had them put a nice map that kind of interacts. And then I sent that to the newspaper and asked them if they could publish it.
And they
said,
did.
I'll try, I don't know when we'll do it. I still have it on my email, waiting for him to.
Yep, they did it.
Wasn't it in that paper? I saw it somewhere published.
I'd really like to have that for in our records. So did anybody say?
Did you see it?
No, I did. In fact, I wondered if that was because you had contacted him, because we just had that discussion. Thank you, yeah, that was,
done. Yay,
that was
we got
probably,
something done.
that was probably 2 weeks ago.
So, did you save it?
No, I didn't, because you can get it online, so,
Okay,
yeah.
I can get it from him.
And then I said, oh, well, our street's going to get swept Thursday, and sure enough, it did.
Okay, David, any,
Well, the bike, the parking up at the baseball park on Ridge Road, and then
okay,
the lack, or the problem down near Verda on Keizer Road. Those are both issues we need. I have some information later tonight, so.
okay. The bike-friendly businesses, I can't remember who.
Hirsch,
I thought that was.
it was part of the
Friendly school, no, bike-friendly
bike-friendly
community.
cities
Yeah,
application. Hirsch was doing that last time. So that's not even, okay, so bike-friendly cities,
Well,
application.
we'll have to decide if we're going to resubmit, but the bike-friendly businesses would be something we could do separately if somebody wants to take the lead on it.
Somebody's got a connection with the chamber.
I think Hirsch was had been starting on it, and then he had to move and all that. We could put him down for that.
Put them down.
He's not here to say no.
That's what he for not being,
Yeah,
put him down for everything.
well, I would think the two below that are also in his interest. The route maps and
the
the
maps has
wayfinding.
been, the wayfinding you worked on a little bit, right?
I mean, I did, Wayne did a bunch.
Did you want to do that?
I've done it before.
I think Hirsch is the lead on the biking, walking route maps, but we're all supposed to submit,
Right.
you know, suggestions to him.
Okay.
And then the wayfinding signage, is that hers too? Oh, that's on the scenic bikeway, that's, I was thinking of the parkway thing.
That, I feel like it was something he would have
We've
done.
done this before. I remember I took a bunch of pictures of the intersections that needed signage. I probably still have them somewhere. What we were looking at was places like where the scenic bikeway comes off Windsor Island Road down that way, and right at Chamawa, the intersection there, there's a nice corner, because the park is to the right and city center is to the left of a lot of businesses. Things like that would be nice places to have it. We didn't ever get to the point of who's gonna pay for it.
I mean, maybe, can we mark it as unassigned, and maybe if I get done with these other two things, then we can see.
Yeah.
And then where it turns up, was it not Dearborn, but, where does it turn up and go up and cross River Road?
Turns on Manbrin.
Manbrin.
Yeah.
So, and then there's another one right across from that Columbia Bank. There's a nice place for a sign, because you have another major turn
Turn onto
there.
Cherry.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah, I think, like Pat said, we'll keep it as unassigned right now. We'll see next meeting if we want to move, if Hirsch wants to take it or someone else. Joe, did you have any that you
The
wanted?
bottom three.
Okay.
I'm willing to work on any or all three of those.
Okay. I will certainly be working on the NACDA one. I'd like to work, I know Hirsch was the one bringing this one up, but the study data on River Road traffic facilities, but I would like to be involved in that too.
I was gonna say, I think I brought that one up.
Oh, was it you? Okay.
Yeah. Well, what I was concerned about really wasn't that so much as that the ages of people involved in major accidents. And so,
Yeah.
in my house, not a prejudice, I'm just concerned about the age of our drivers.
Well, I do know we did talk about getting to the, the whole information about that last
Who is
crash.
it? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll put you down and me and Hirsch, because I do remember him talking about it. But if he's not interested, then we can drop him. So that leaves.
Trash receptacles.
I know.
That's mine.
That's Pat.
Sue's?
Pat.
Okay, that's everything I've got. Let me see if
I
I've
think so.
got it right. I'm gonna be that so. Y'all look at your things.
No, what the
Parkway path signage is Pat. Bike-friendly businesses Hirsch. Biking, walking group groups. Hirsch heading it. Wayfinding signage on the Willamette Valley Scenic Bikeway is unassigned. Safe routes to school action plan, Wayne. Public outreach, trash receptacles, Pat. Publication of streets done. Bike parking facilities assessment, Pat and Wayne. Bike skills fair, Hirsch and David. Study data on River Road traffic fatalities, Mike, David, and Hirsch. Safe routes to parks grant is Wayne. Remedy parking, bike lane at Ridge Road, Keizer Lake Park, David. Citywide missing link project combined with neighborhood connectivity is Kathy. Bike ped infrastructure code policy review is Joe. Additional bike repair station is Kathy and Joe. NACDO discussion is Kathy, Joe, and Mike. Is that right?
I would say for that citywide missing link, I think that's a team thing too.
Yes, I've got that as team.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't,
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's what I've got.
Okay, good.
Great. Do we want to try prioritizing these? Some of these things are ongoing, so I wouldn't try and prioritize them as certainly not high.
Are we talking in terms of which ones we need to do first, or their importance? Because that's really two
Well-
different.
Well, I see what you're saying, but I guess if they're important and they're doable, they should be a high.
Okay, the problem with the Ridge Road baseball parking lot up on there. That needs to be done now. And I can contact Bill and the city in terms of if they're, what they want to do with that, if anything, see what's going on. If they may have plans to do something.
We'll have, for something like that, a report back to our-
Well, I can report back, I know what the problem is. What would really be nice later is to come up, if we could come together tonight and make a recommendation,
Yeah,
that be included in this, because the budget starts now.
right,
So we need to include it in the budget for next year. So you got March and April,
right.
or March, basically. So anyway, I
Oh,
think that would be
yeah.
something we need to do soon.
Sure. Well, is that something then you think that you could have a report by next meeting and we could make a decision on
Well,
something?
if we can't make it tonight, because we're still, aren't I still on the agenda?
We're on number 5.
Oh,
I mean,
well,
we don't, it'll fly through the rest of them.
anyway,
assuming.
under individual people who are asking.
Well, and you have budget,
Staff reports.
you have budget requests too. I think that was where you were.
Right, that's where it was going to be, yes.
Yeah, okay,
So we'll do it then,
okay.
or not.
I guess maybe we shouldn't do the prioritization tonight just because Hirsch isn't here and we don't know where he wants to be on all these.
I mean, out of the ones that my name is on, I can prioritize among
Right.
myself what I would do first, second, and third.
Well, I guess we'll have to postpone the prioritization till next meeting in March.
Or like what Pat just suggested, have each person, the ones they're assigned to,
Yeah.
do their own prioritization plan or idea.
I would just like to, though, have each meeting where we can have the discussion and make the decision that night, or have the discussion and make the decision at the next meeting after we've chewed on it. But each meeting have the discussion on a specific topic. Sometimes they will take a couple of meetings, but try and move things along with a
Well, so that way,
respectable pace.
we don't have to go down this whole list necessarily every time. If some of them are lower priority and are not going to occur until after another one, then we can narrow the list of what we're going to update on each time.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay. So let's move along to number 6, the budget requests.
Okay. I didn't get it. I have two things I'd like us to look at, and then maybe make a budget request. And I can just pass this down. Most of you have seen it. Keizer Road goes from has an access to the Parkway bike lane, goes by the grade school, and then heads on down. On the north side of the street, up above on Ridge Road, you have the baseball diamonds, you have the new apartment complex. And you have another large apartment complex, kind of kitty corner from the grade school across Keizer Road. And then you have a church on the corner that goes all the way from Verda for about 100, well, I'm guessing, I don't know the measurements, Mike, maybe you do, 70 yards? Okay, there's a sidewalk and a bike lane on Keizer Road on the north side, up to where the apartment put the sidewalk in, and then it stops. And there's nothing from there to Verda. If you're walking, and I think there's a lot of people up there who are gonna walk. Yeah. That's your route to city center, courthouse, Safeway, whatever. So you come down, the easiest way is to come down Keizer Road, but we're missing a chunk of sidewalk and bike lane. The bike lane's gone because the gravel that comes out of the church parking lot on the corner, you don't want to ride your bike in there. And I was over there and you can't push a stroller through that gravel. Okay, now, yeah, they could sweep it off, but it would be back there the next day.
Yeah, well, I think,
So, Anyway, so what I would like us to do is recommend that the city put a sidewalk in, appropriate sidewalk in from the existing sidewalk to Verda's sidewalk. and mark it for a bike lane also.
I think there's like, once Kathy gets into this missing links thing, there's probably little missing links like that all around town, but since that one has come to our attention, I would support urging the city to complete the sidewalk, the missing sidewalk, and then if there's enough room, stripe the bike lanes, both sides, because we shouldn't stripe one side without the other, or we'll attract wrong-way riding, but if there's room within the right-of-way, we should stripe the bike lanes on both sides as well.
Oh, and the other piece of that I wanted to mention, that might make it a little higher priority. There's a large trailer park right behind the school. I forgot the name of it, Meadows or something. Anyway, drive through there sometime for fun, see if you can, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of kids in there and people without cars, and their mode, if they use walking, that's the safest route. There is a nice sidewalk at the traffic circle.
Do we need to make a motion for these
Well,
individual ones?
that's-
Or?
I would suggest you make a motion, but then you need to follow up with maybe assigning somebody to go to a budget committee meeting, or maybe all of you go to a budget committee meeting, and make your request known to them. They'll have the minutes, they all go to all the counselors, and then so the motion will be in the minutes, but they get a lot of things, and they don't
Right.
always get around to reading all.
But do we need to, is there a step in there where Public Works needs to tell us how much it costs?
Mike, what would be an appropriate, helpful thing for us to do?
Project.
Like you suggested, you were gonna meet with Bill and start that discussion there and have things explained as far as, because right now that's not marked, the bike lane, and I think the reason being is because we don't have the appropriate widths along there with the travel lanes that we have. The sidewalk is a great idea to put that piece in right there. I know, I don't think there's any bicycle collisions on Keizer Road right now as it stands, and, I mean, it's a pedestrian path, but it doesn't have the widths for bicycles. It doesn't mean that bicycles can't ride on it, it
Right.
just doesn't have the
Well,
space.
there's actually a bike lane, where there's no sidewalk, there is a bike lane.
But it's not marked, so I don't.
Yeah, I think it is.
It's just a shoulder?
It's just,
No,
it's got the
there's
white,
a
it's got the
marked white line.
The white line,
There's
I
a-
think.
Well,
A white line doesn't mean it's a bike lane.
oh, okay, well, it looks like a bike lane.
Shoulder.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it does, but if it's not stamped on the ground, it's.
Not a bike, okay.
Right.
So I can, if we agree, okay, somebody make a motion
Well,
and get to the next
before we
step.
make the motion, is there any other budget requests? I would think we'd want to wrap that up into one motion.
Yes.
Yes.
Delight Street path. And I talked to Bill Lawyer about that when we were out looking at the Adam Court Thurman thing. And he said, because we didn't get the Safe Routes to School grant, he said it's still on his list of things to do, and he wants to bring it up in the budget process this year. But it would be very helpful, if we made a push for it too. And I know West Keizer Neighborhood Association is going to do the same thing. So,
We should keep them separate.
so those two,
Deb,
so I would hope that this,
I
two
think
separate
each
motions,
of
yeah.
these should be separate, so they could,
That way, right,
Okay.
okay.
okay. Good.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the first one. Did
Okay,
somebody make a motion?
so-
Pat, did you make a motion? I didn't.
Could make I move that we take the next step towards,
I would just recommend to the city that we put in a sidewalk.
is that a budget request?
Yeah.
Oh,
From where to where? And
that map.
From the end of the sidewalk to Verda on the north side of Keizer Road.
Okay, so I move that we put in the budget, or recommend a budget request for sidewalk on the north side of Keizer Road from Verda Lane east connecting to existing sidewalk.
Second.
Okay, let me make sure I got that right. Okay, so you moved that the Traffic Bikeways Pedestrian Committee recommend funding for a sidewalk from the end of the sidewalk to Verda on the north side of Keizer Road? Is that right?
Yep.
That's something. Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Seeing none, That motion passes.
Okay. I make a motion that we recommend to the city a budget request to finish the Delight
Sidewalk from
sidewalk
Shamawa to Cummings, or to the Cummings School
to the Delight project
pathway.
pathway to Cummings School. Yeah.
Well, whatever's
Well-
possible.
Just,
Well-
well, I want to make a if somebody seconds that, I want to have a discussion.
Is that from Cummings, or are you saying from Dearborn to Shimao?
What was the, what,
That was the piece that we were really talking about for city funds, and then the other piece was with the school.
Which I think the school can only go to
It's
the.
needed all the way, so.
Yeah, the school can only go to the end of the school grounds. And then there's one lot between there and Dearborn, but then from Dearborn to Shamawa, there's nothing.
Correct, so our piece was from Dearborn to Shimao, and that little piece that you talked about in the schools, it's only like 20 feet to connect to get to Dearborn.
You need to get into the school. You
No,
need to
but
get all the
you
way
need to continue,
Cummings.
it needs to connect to the square, whatever the school does, I think. Yeah, so,
is this the project we did before?
yeah.
The recommendation is to fund finishing the Delight pathway from Shamawa
Well,
to Cummings School.
Construct
Yeah.
a new, from,
As
to Cummings
described
School,
in
it should say
this.
from Cummings.
To the Cummings School, yeah, to the school property.
Okay.
Discussion.
So,
Well,
make a second.
I'll second.
discussion.
Discussion, Joe. Discussion?
In parentheses, could you put that this was the Safe Routes to School project for Cummings Elementary?
Well, I don't think it has to be the same, because
I don't think that the city can, would pay for the same
Well,
thing that we
We have,
suggested.
we have had a
My
grant, didn't we have a grant application?
Yeah,
How much was the grant application for?
under 300,000, which is not very much.
was it really?
Yeah.
So that's what isn't that what we're asking to
That's,
replace?
that's for an asphalt path, so I guess my discussion is that, as this committee knows, I think already, I don't think an asphalt path is appropriate in that area, and so I would recommend that it be constructed as a sidewalk, not a path. That's,
I'll amend the motion.
So recommend funding for a sidewalk on Delight from Shamawa to Cummings School.
Property.
Yeah, that's good.
I'll
Okay.
vote yes if that's what it is, but I'd be voting no if it's a path.
I'll second that, and I guess we, it does,
Yeah.
oh, it has- oh, okay,
He okayed it.
okay.
Do we have to vote on the amendment?
No, you don't, because it was a friendly amendment.
Okay.
Some discussion, though. I agree that what we really need is a sidewalk there, but if we can't get anything else, just getting kids off the street would help. But it certainly doesn't hurt to ask for that, I agree, and if the city will pay for it, that would be great. But rather than have nothing,
But if you start with the sidewalk, if that's all, if they can't do a sidewalk, but they can do something similar, at least you'll get some budget in there.
right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree. Okay, so, since we have a motion and a second, we'll vote. Oh,
Yeah, so when you say sidewalk, do you mean curb and sidewalk? Because a pathway, whether it be concrete or pavement, as long as there's a 10-foot pathway, the decision just wasn't.
Well, my concern, no, a sidewalk, by that I would mean, could be curb and 6-foot sidewalk, could be at-grade 6-foot sidewalk, or like what we have on Alder.
Would it be
And
just
at-
probably like a floating sidewalk like we just did on Shamawa from Verda to Bonaventure there, McLeod, that's kind of.
Yes. That is what I think would be appropriate there. You call it floating, or I called it an at-grade sidewalk. A sidewalk width being 6 feet, maybe 7 at the most, and not 10 or 12, which would attract people riding their bikes the wrong way. That would clarify what I mean by the sidewalk.
okay. And everyone's okay with that description of? Okay. All right, so, we'll make a vote. All in favor of the motion to recommend to the Budget Committee, a sidewalk of some design from Chamawa to the Cummings School property, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Seeing none, that motion passes. Do we have any other budget
Yes.
requests? Okay.
I just have, like, it's just pet projects, I guess. On Ridge Road at the Keizer baseball fields, the use of the parking lot has chewed up the asphalt on Ridge Road. And there used to be a bike lane that ran, I guess I could pass this down to you. I didn't get to a Xerox machine. There used to be a bike lane all along the west side of Ridge Road. It wasn't a very good bike lane. 3 feet wide. But the people going in and out of the parking lot for several years have the bike lanes chewed up and gone. And lots of gravel and has been brought up onto the road. So it makes it a very, very difficult place to bicycle. But that bike lane went from the fields all the way around and wrapped around to Keizer Road. Also, if you're coming off of the Salem Parkway bike path, you get off at Keizer Road, then you're just on your own on Ridge Road, I guess. But anyway, I would like for us to recommend repairing the road, asphalt road and bike path in front of the Little League parks. I'm going to use the word repairing. Or restoring the bike lanes that went in front of the Little League baseball parks.
Can I just ask a question to clarify? Now, Mike was saying how just because there's a striped lane doesn't... Is it a shoulder, or did you see the bike?
There's no bike markers, but it's considered a bike lane.
Well,
It was considered a bike, well,
it's considered a
Fog line?
shoulder, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So it really wouldn't be, it would be doing the paving, but actually turning that into a bike lane is what you're...
yeah, it's not a big job. The problem was, the same thing, I used to be on a road district, and whenever you put a road in, you don't put nice aprons, like 8 feet back into the people's property, it chews up your road all the time, and that's what's happened there, because they've never, and the city owns the baseball park, they own the parking lot, and they own the road. Correct, everybody with that?
I would assume, yeah.
Point of order here, though, you're discussing and you haven't had a second.
Oh, anyway, I make a motion that we restore the,
Shoulder from where to where? Keizer
along
Road
Ridge
to-
Road in front of the baseball park.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Now,
Discussing.
I don't really have any idea how much it costs. First off, the road's narrower now. I think more people are gonna and they should be, we're encouraging people to bicycle there, and it's not a good place.
Right.
And I don't know how much it would cost. I know how much it used to have cost, but I don't.
It's not paved there now.
It's paved out in front.
Just gone and covered.
Yeah, it's been chewed back about 3 feet into the road, 2 feet into the road.
So you're wanting more of an apron back farther.
I just want to, actually, if we could put it back to where it was, it would work for 2 or 3 years, or 5 years, I don't know. If you did it correct, and have more money, then you would pave farther into the parking lot, and then it wouldn't chew up as fast, that's all.
Would you say that turning that into an actual bike lane is
I think it
necessity?
was considered a bike lane.
Well-
It's as close as we're gonna get to one.
right? But I guess the question is, there is some cost to marking it as a bike lane.
I don't think it's big enough. It's pretty small.
Right.
It's not a good road. The easement's funny if you ever look at where the easement actually is and where the road is. But there's a lot of people drive on that during a baseball game. And people walking, if nothing else, the people walking on that side, biking on that side.
What's the drainage there? Is that draining into a,
Into the
is
baseball
there like the
field.
shoulder and then off into a ditch?
Just
or
goes into the parking lot.
no ditch, just sheet off?
It's all downhill to the baseball field, Claggett Creek.
Pervious gravel.
So so what would you say is entailed then in widening back, that shoulder back out to like a 4-foot shoulder or something?
I'll just have to take a look at it, scraping back all the rock that's gone over it and just see what area that, you know, Dave's talking about. And, oh, we just need to add a little bit to the shoulder, or this is where, you know, be able to see what the issue is and then just go, oh, okay, we'll go from here to here. Should make sense.
And it might, for all I know, I was gonna go to the parks budget, but I didn't get to. They may have included improving their parking at the baseball fields. And if they did, they may have included that in their budget. I don't know. Didn't look like it from the minutes.
Well, shall we continue then with that motion and second of recommending to the budget committee or to the city funding for restoring the apron into the baseball parking lot and
Along the west side of Ridge Road. Mike, you know what I'm talking about? Okay.
And then, again, how far?
yeah, what,
I don't know.
Or
It's less than 100 yards. I mean, I would suspect it's 50 yards.
but if you're talking about doing a
Well, if you
bike
look,
lane, if you were talking about creating
Well,
more
part
of a
of it-
bike lane, you want more than 100
no,
yards.
we're not, just where it's been destroyed, not adding new, which is would be another problem. It'd be a lot. So we just replace what was there would help.
Would you say it's like along the full length of the Little League
It's full length of the parking lot.
property area?
Okay, so do we want to make an amendment to say that it would be restoring the pavement along the full length frontage of the baseball parking lot?
Yes.
Okay, so we have, if everyone's okay with that, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, or, oh, I say aye too. Any opposed or abstains? Seeing none, motion passes.
Okay. I have a question. When's the first budget committee hearing meeting? Okay. I'll be back for that. So I can go to the budget, do you mind? I'll volunteer. I will volunteer. If anyone wants to come with me, that's fine. Go to the budget committee with these recommendations and
What, so when was that? I was writing when you, April 30th. Does anyone else want to join David? Well,
I may, I'll just, maybe.
yeah, 'cause I
okay,
can
well,
help on that.
so we'll say for now, David will be attending, and if anyone else can make it, they'll coordinate with David to join him.
And I'll present these to Bill.
And if it's okay with you, well, actually, Bill Woolright will be working on the budget, and he will see these minutes. So I'll point out to him that you're going to make that budget request, and maybe he can already have it in there before.
Okay. Yes.
Question for Mike. I hadn't thought of bringing this as a budget request, but just north of the Wallace House Park, on I think the street is Rivercrest, near the corner of, when you come south on that, all of a sudden you lose half of the street, kind of suddenly, and you see that catches people off guard because there's tire tracks all in there. So is that on the city's radar to either maybe taper that down or build that other piece of that street at some point? I mean, this is popular as a bicycling route, and if people are riding in the dark, that maybe catch people by surprise and cause injury, but it's also from a traffic safety perspective that I think it's a safety concern.
Duly noted. It's on a radar, not on a radar, and I know about what you're talking about, and why that neck's down like that, I'm not sure. So, I'll look into it, and
Is that something that would be appropriate to put in in this group of requests from our committee?
let me look into it and talk with Bill, and I'll get back to you.
Okay.
So we'll hold off on that. Okay, any other requests? Seeing none, we'll move on to committee member input. We'll start with Joe.
I have none.
David?
I'm done.
Okay. Kathy?
Yeah, I was at a MPO meeting recently and heard a talk by Doug Bish, who's a ODOT traffic engineer, and ODOT is doing a study, a speed methodology study. I guess there's statutory limits, certain roads between 0 and 25 miles an hour is statutory, and from 50 and above is statutory, but that in between 25 and 50 is discretionary, and ODOT has the discretion to decide what speed limits are. Well, Portland has gotten themselves opted out of that, and they're setting speed limits down to 20 in most residential areas, and kind of depending on what the traffic is in that area and what the circumstances are. And so ODOT's looking at maybe instituting that all over, that cities would have more authority to decide the speed limits in their towns, depending on the situation. And I thought maybe that would be something we'd maybe be interested in knowing more about. They're doing the study now, and it's coming out in March. So I could keep an eye on that, and maybe even get someone in here to talk about what their findings are, if people would be interested in doing that.
That'd be great.
Yeah, because I, you know, just like we've talked about Lock Haven, you know, that looks like an expressway. You know, there's nothing slowing anyone down there, yet you've got kids going in and out of elementary school and a high school, but we don't have the discretion to slow the speed down there. So, yeah, I thought that would be, so I will do that then if you think that you'd be interested in. I'll bring more information back.
Yes.
When they've got, okay.
Pat?
A couple of things. On the safe routes to school, I didn't bring the announcement, but I believe that it's about to open for the non-infrastructure types of projects and the project identification. And I don't know, Wayne, if you have.
I have a little more on that.
You have a little more on that? Okay, so I'll leave kind of that. Last time, I think somebody mentioned that the governor's office audit of the safe routes to school process. I've kind of heard it referred to as a scathing report. I didn't think it was too much of a scathing report. You know, they said that some things were going okay and some other things they needed to improve on for the future. And some of the things I think were already came known to our committee as we went through the process, that we had a hard time figuring out who to ask certain questions. So hopefully that part will get worked on before the next round. The bicycle parking assessment tool, I did send the link to Debbie to send out to the committee, and I've printed out part of it. I've just done this, so I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but this was the document that I've referred to a couple of times, and so I finally looked it up and printed it out, and I think this would be what we can use to go around to the different schools and make an evaluation of their bike parking, whether it's in a good location, in a good, a safe and secure type of rack and so forth. So that can kind of, Wayne and I can maybe
I
start.
was pretty sure SRTS, Safe Routes to
Yeah.
School, probably already had something created, rather than us going out and trying to create our own criteria.
I didn't realize it was through Safe Routes to School because I saw this presented just at a statewide conference, and it was through the people from the University of Oregon that did this, but I guess they published this report then onto the Safe Routes website, so there's that link, which is good also.
I was just thinking, when we do visit the schools, we need to let the schools know that we're there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, you know, so we can make an appointment to principal or staff or something to tell us a little bit about what's going on with their bike parking, not just observing it, you know.
and then the schools would probably also want some feedback on what we found
Right.
on their biking area.
So that's the what I have on that one. The last thing is the Parkway path. So we almost had a meeting on site, but that fell through. But I have talked with Jenna Berman at ODOT Region 2, who's the active transportation liaison for our area, for the ODOT active person for our area. And she had told me that she's already working with at least 2 other cities on a similar request as ours, where they want to put up wayfinding signs on an ODOT facility because that would benefit people coming to and from their city. So she's working already with Corvallis and I believe Eugene on that. So she's kind of working her way through some of the ODOT bureaucracy bugs and figuring out things like, you know, who do we need to get to apply for the permit and what the, you know, what level of plans and specifications and cost estimates and so forth we need. So I can continue working with her on that. And I also have a meeting on site with her on March 14th to look at not necessarily the signing aspects of it because that she feels that's maybe pretty straightforward, but the other things that Hirsch and I had identified when we went out and did our site visits 2 years ago, and that is the connections from the Parkway path to the neighborhood street. So that's at Brooks, Pleasant View, Keizer Road, and the other one that's just north of Verda that connects into a neighborhood. So Hirsch and I had recommended some improvements of those connectors and how the paving and the bollards and the things like that. So those Jenna will look at with me on site next month. I also spoke with David Jensen at the Marion County Engineering, and that had to do with what the county's role might be in designing and fabricating the signs. From ODOT, the good news, I guess, is that there is a funding source available that we can apply for, sort of first come, first serve for small projects of this kind that are on the ODOT right-of-way. So the timing is good now to get all the pieces put together on this, make the application, and move forward. Also talking with Mike Griffin earlier today, we've discovered that the city crew cannot be the ones to install the signs because since the work is on state property instead of within the city. So that may be something that I work with ODOT to find out whether we would need to do a small bid project or whether the ODOT forces may be able to install the signs if we get the grant for it. So I think that's the update on that, unless there's questions about that.
Okay. Speaking of the active transportation network, I got an email that they're having a meeting on the 21st at 2 at the Center 50+ building on Portland Road. So I don't know if anyone is able to attend that. I could send the email to Debbie and she could send it to all you so you could have the agenda if you wanted to look at it and see if you could attend. I'm at work at that time of day, so I can't. But, and one other thing, last month, or the last meeting, our counselor liaison, Dan Kohler, commented on the troubles at Harmony and Trail where people can't see because there's a big shrub line in front of the property. That'd be on Trail to the north side of Harmony. And I go by there all the time, and that is it can be a visual barrier for sure, but I do notice that the street where Harmony enters into Trail is very wide. It's as if you almost have like a right turn lane in there. So if that was perhaps narrowed down where there's not that much traffic there, that would force people to actually come to where the true stop is at that intersection, they would be able to see there. So it's not exactly a budget request, but
Is it a blockage of view?
so there's
I mean, is shrubbery blocking your view? I can't picture it in my mind. I know where Trail is, but.
So there's a line opposite of those new apartments, on
Harmony Crossing.
Harmony Crossing, yeah, of shrubs that I would put them at, I don't know, 12 feet tall, and they're solid. And they come up to they actually kind of lean over into the bike lane.
Okay. Do we have city policies that said you can't do that? So one of the things I did when I walked around the grade schools was whenever somebody had shrubs hanging over the bike lane, gravel in the bike lane from their gravel driveway, grass growing in the sidewalk, those are all, you can just file a complaint. It's not, we just write the address down and say, shrubs are hanging over the bike lane.
Right.
That's it. And they will send them a letter, give them so many days to repair it. And I went back and walked around the grade school, and all of them had been fixed that were fixable. The places where there were sidewalk eruptions that were gonna cost somebody hundreds of bucks to fix, didn't get fixed.
Right.
But,
And
I mean,
as
you can
a-
still complain about it, but
Well, as I say, the way that intersection is, it's a very, it's almost wise out when, flares out when you get to trail, and, which allows people to make an easier right turn onto trail. But if it was a straighter path, that would get people right to that true stop, and then you could see well. So it's an issue as as the whole thing is designed. There isn't so much traffic there that I think it causes safety problems. I think it's just, if it's bothered you, like you say, when you live near something, it bothers you, and you want someone to fix it.
well, I'd make them cut the hedge back
Right,
first and see what happens.
yeah. But that would be something someone would have to
Yeah,
write.
most people, especially if is it commercial property that the hedge is on?
It's
apartment?
it's a residence, but they seem to have some type of business there,
Yes.
yeah.
On Harmony, when you're headed westbound, coming up to the stop sign, if you drive straight, you run right into the apartments? Is that
Exactly, yep. So there's
Big oak tree there?
giant oak trees, yeah. And then there's shrubs too,
And are the shrubs when you turn?
onto trail.
On the trail?
Yeah.
And those shrubs are blocking, okay.
So if, I guess, when you come up there and you want to do your right turn, I'm assuming that's what it's about, you kind of pull tighter to that corner, and so that shrub line blocks a little bit of your vision. Now, it's a three-way stop, so it's not like people are blasting through there, so, but
It's
anyway.
dangerous until there's a wreck, yeah.
Exactly. Anyway, that's all I've got right now.
Okay. I attended the Safe Routes to School Advisory Committee meeting on Tuesday, February 12th, a 3-hour meeting. They talked about all kinds of stuff, people from all over the state. They did let us know that there were 24 projects that were approved for the infrastructure Safe Routes to School. Our 2 projects were not in those 24. There are other types of projects and grants available. They have a project type called rapid response. That would be if there's an immediate danger, a fatality, same criteria, Title I, within a mile of school, but if it's an immediate need, there is grant money available. There's $1,800,000 available for 2019-2020 for rapid response type of grants. If we see something around the town that might qualify, then we would figure that out, what that project is, and then there might be money for that. There's also, Safe Routes to School has the infrastructure projects, which we've already done the competitive bid process for last year, and so the competitive process is done right now. They also have, yes. They also have, in the competitive process was for infrastructure projects. They also have non-infrastructure grants available, and they're kind of based on education, encouragement, enforcement, not engineering. Okay, There's 6 E's, and we got 5 out of the 6 E's are included in non-infrastructure. The one that's not included is engineering. So there is a grant process, review process, and it will probably start in June for non-infrastructure projects. I don't know how much money is available. It would probably be a minimum of 12% matching funds from whatever the entity is. Here's the other E's: education, encouragement, enforcement, evaluation, and equity. Okay. But just to let you know that there are other grant opportunities out there. I guess that's what I got from this meeting. And we want to keep our eyes open if we see any need for rapid response type of a grant. That's all I have.
Was there any talk about what those 24 projects, what made them rise to the top?
They showed them. They didn't really talk about them individually.
There are no common themes, though, about why.
They didn't go into that.
Okay.
But we do know, I don't know if you can see it, but there were projects all over the state, mostly, there were infrastructure projects granted throughout the state. They did note that coastal regions, rural small areas on the coast were kind of left out, and kind of areas on eastern Oregon were also left out. So most of them are in the, looks like the Willamette Valley.
But I
What a great-
also,
what a
I mean,
great place to live.
if we look at the criteria that they had, whether you were on a high-traffic, high-speed street was a major factor in it. I mean, neither of our two proposals were, so that was one place where we were at a disadvantage in our proposals compared to those that were, had higher speed or multiple lane crossings and stuff like that.
We'll have to raise the speed limit to know.
Okay, so that's all I have for the committee.
Okay, well, thank you.
I have a question, Wayne, just see if I understand this right. The non-infrastructure grant, suppose the principal at Cummings Elementary got together with us and we're gonna do a training program.
Bicycle training, bicycle rodeo,
Well, but to get the kids to and from school, how to walk, where to walk.
walking
walk
school
them
bus.
through it,
Yep.
do that stuff.
Education
Is
program.
that the type of thing they would help fund?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
They did mention if you're planning a infrastructure program, you should also be thinking of a component of that to be included to be non-infrastructure. The education part, have it built into your infrastructure program to have,
Do you,
and they'll allocate like an additional $5,000 for that training as part of the infrastructure program.
do you think we can reapply? When's the next time we can apply for?
I don't know the exact dates.
Is it possible? Do you think we could just reapply with the same request?
Well, we could.
I mean, if it doesn't get done by then?
Well, the one you're talking about is non-infrastructure.
Yeah, but could the infrastructures go up, what, next year?
Well, part of
Funny.
another aspect of it is what I think Wayne put his name to take the lead on, which is the Safe Routes to School action plans. And so that would also help the coming school project would be to go through the full action plan process with the community, with the parent-teacher group, with the city and the neighborhood and everything, and really figure out what are all the options around that school and prioritize. And once, if we had a completed plan like that, that would help our chances too.
That's what I learned. A completed action plan includes components of infrastructure and non-infrastructure.
Absolutely.
Non-infrastructure would be the training, the education, the encouragement, the equity features.
Okay. Well, we'll talk more about that.
I'll try to get some dates of when the projects can be submitted for all three types.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to the staff report. Mike, you have anything for us besides what you talked about? No. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Police liaison, it doesn't look like we have one tonight, so we'll move along to our council liaison. We have a special guest.
I do not have anything either.
Okay. Well, then,
Look at that.
that was a fast 3 things on the agenda. So I will adjourn the meeting tonight and see you all on the 14th.
I want you to know my plane gets it on the